Everybody, we are live, and I bless God for each one of you that are tuning in today. And what a beautiful day it is outside. It is a beautiful, beautiful day outside. And I want you to please like this, share this on your page, because it really does help when you take a minute and share these things, or you like it on your page. It does make a difference, and it helps us to spread the word. So thank you in advance for doing that. It is 2 o'clock here. It's 1 o'clock in Texas and in Wisconsin, where many people are watching us as well. And our scripture today actually comes from 1 Corinthians chapter 2, and we're going to go through verse 1 through 5, verses 1 through 5. And I couldn't pick one verse out of it. I had to go through the entire passage so that it makes sense. Now, in verse number 1, you will see the Apostle Paul talking, and he says, I, brethren, when I came to you, came not with excellency of speech or of wisdom, declaring unto you the testimony of God. And now you'll notice him saying that a couple of times, that I didn't come with excellency of speech. Paul was a plain spoken person. Paul was the kind of person that if you didn't know well, his first impression, you wouldn't think that he was as well educated as he was, especially when it came to talking about Jesus Christ, which takes us to verse number 2. He said, I didn't come with excellency of speech, but in verse number 2, he says, for I determined not to know anything among you save Jesus Christ and him crucified. In other words, Paul was saying, the main thing I want you to know is about Jesus. And he had determined and found out that the best way to teach somebody about Jesus is with plain words, which takes us to verse number 3. In verse number 3, he says, and I was with you in weakness and in fear and in much trembling. Sometimes we try to put this image off of ourselves as being super strong and above life. But that wasn't the way that the Apostle Paul carried himself. Paul was not the kind of person that tried to come across as being more than he actually was. Paul was like, hey, if I'm sick, I'm sick. If I don't feel well, I don't feel well. If I'm having a problem, I'm having a problem. That's the way Paul was. And I think it made him real and approachable, unlike what we do so often today. We try to come across as being so spiritual and so anointed. Yeah, I know I said anointed. So anointed that we seem to be above life, and nothing could be further from the truth. If Paul had an inner drive, Paul had an internal drive, Paul had a mental drive, he had something pushing him. And the thing that was pushing Paul was Jesus Christ and communicating Jesus to the world, not just on Easter. We only talk about, not us, but some Christians only talk about the resurrection of Christ. Some people only talk about the crucifixion of Christ during Easter time. No. We got to do a much, much better job. The next verse number 4, Paul says in verse number 4, he says, and my speech and my preaching was not with enticing words of man's wisdom. That reminds me of verse number 1. But in demonstration of the Spirit and of power. He's saying, I wasn't trying to entice you. I don't know about you, but I've noticed even in the way that I preach here lately, since COVID, since I've been preaching to an empty room, if you will, or outside, that many of the pastors and preachers, our styles have changed. I know mine has. My style has changed. My content has changed. My approach to the scripture has changed. Why? Because you're preaching to a different audience now. And Paul didn't have to change. Paul said, I'm not trying to use enticing words. Oh, you have to look up that word enticing to see what it means. We're not using enticing words. This is not bait and switch. As a matter of fact, I think that what we have to do is we first of all have to know what we're talking about. Secondly, I think we have way too much fluff, or we had, the past tense, too much fluff, even in church. And we would spend 3 seconds on altar call and 30 minutes, 45 minutes, an hour or 2 hours on everything else. But what if we made everything about Jesus? Less hype, less jargon, and more substance, more gospel. And when we begin to do that, everything centers around him. Even the songs are about salvation. Even if we having food, it's about fellowship. Why are we fellowshipping? We're fellowshipping to talk about Jesus Christ. Let's go to verse number 5. Verse number 5 is so important. He says that your faith should not stand in the wisdom of men, but in the power of God. I'm going to read that again. Paul says that your faith should not stand in the wisdom of men, but in the power of God. Now, what that means is that we should not base our faith on a person. There are some people who believe they are saved because of who they were saved under. Their faith is based on the wisdom of man. Personality-driven faith will not get you through some of life's storms. I better say that one more time. Personality-driven faith will not get you through some storms. You need a faith that is based not on the excellency of words, not on enticing words, but you need a faith that's based on Jesus Christ and him crucified. Let's get back to the basics. Let's go out of our way to win a soul. And when we win the soul, let's point that soul in the right direction. And I believe that when we do that, when we are focused on Christ and him crucified, we're going to see a different kind of result. But if we're trying to win souls to ourselves, to win souls to our congregation, to win souls to our denomination, to win souls to our organization, to win souls to our opinion, as long as that's our number one goal, we're going to get those kind of results. But that wasn't what Paul was about. Paul was about Jesus Christ and him crucified. That's what you call back to the basics. I'm out of time, but I want you to know there is no fear when you live in the kingdom because we have the victory. Please tune in tonight for Bible study. I'm going to be talking about a Bible study series entitled Soul Winning Today, and you don't want to miss tonight's Bible study. So be right here at 7 o'clock Eastern Standard Time, or whatever time that is for you. I love you to life. God bless you. Have a wonderful rest of the day.